This is Topography Exercise 6, Diminished Triads in Inversions. So what we're looking at now is we're looking at the diminished triad. We already know the major triad, which is a major third and then a minor third. So major third, minor third. We've even looked at the minor triad, which is minor third, major third. Now we're going to look at the diminished triad, which is two minor thirds. We've already dealt with this a little bit when we were playing the 2-6 in the minor keys. It ends up being a diminished triad. So we're a little bit familiar with it. Now we're going to try and get just a little bit more familiar with it. So this is the same as you used to do with major. Except now you're going to do it with diminished. Part of what makes this especially tricky is we still want you to move around the circle of fifths, not the circle of diminished fifths. So before, you used to play this major triad, you used to go, okay, next note is G, because that's what's at the top. And you were able to move around like that, paying attention to it. You don't get to do that anymore, because your top note is a tritone, not the perfect fifth. So you got to think about it a little bit more. You go from C diminished to G diminished, and then from G diminished to D diminished, and then from D diminished to A diminished, and then from A diminished to E diminished, and then to B diminished, and then to F sharp diminished. Which, by the way, when we get to these, just so you know, the way I think about this, because there's two ways, right? When you're moving from major chord to make something diminished, you either lower the top two notes or you raise the root. And so I think of these as F chords with a raised root, if that helps. If that makes it worse, ignore what I just said. Anyway, F sharp diminished to C sharp diminished to A flat diminished to E flat diminished to B flat diminished to F diminished, and then we're back to C diminished. Okay, that's the first step, is making sure you can get around the circle of fifths. What you actually need to do for this assignment is play in all the inversions. So you go from here, then you take the C and put it on top, then you take the E flat and put it on top, then you take the G flat and put it on top, then you go back down. And then you move around to G. Because you got to think about this, and particularly, I look at first inversion here, and there's such a wide skip here, just by the nature of a diminished triad, that you got to think about that a little bit. So take your time as you're doing this. The more you do it, the more your hands will get used to what it feels like to do these. Now we're headed to D diminished. To A diminished. Then to E diminished. To B diminished, which might be the easiest of them all. Then to F sharp diminished, which if you think about it is F major with a raised root. sharp diminished. A flat diminished. And then to E flat diminished, which for me is the weirdest of them all. There it is. Flat diminished. And finally, F diminished. Oh, I missed it. There it is. So this one, just like you saw me do there, I had a little bit of trouble, so now I'm going to do it 3 more times just to make sure. And I messed up, so that one doesn't count. So here we go, here's 1. One right, here we go, now 2 right. And now 3 right. I've done it 3 times right over the 2 times that I did it wrong. So I've done it more times right than wrong. That's the kind of thing you want to do when you have those little challenges.